the Ottoman army invaded the island. During the Cretan War 1645 to 1669, she was captured as a very young girl when the Ottomans conquered Rethymno in 1645. Taken as slave and was sent to Constantinople. She was renamed Emitul Arabia Gülnu and was given a thoroughly Ottoman education in the harem department of Topkapi Palace, and soon attracted the attention of the Sultan, Mehmed IV, and became his concubine. He was famous for his hunting expeditions in the Balkans, and used to take her, his favorite, to these expeditions. She was described as a curvy woman with long black curly hair. They had at least 6 children, among them 2 sons, both of whom became the future sultans. Mustafa II, born 1664, died 1703, and Ahmed III, born 1673, died 1736. Ahmed was born in Dibruka during one of the hunting expeditions of Mehmed IV. Her rivalry with Gülbayez, an odalisque of Mehmed IV, led to a tragic end. Sultan Mehmed had been deeply enamored of her, but after Gülbayez entered his harem, his affections began to shift. Gülnu, who was still in love with the Sultan, became madly jealous. One day, as Gülbayez was sitting on a rock and watching the sea, Gülnu slightly pushed her off the cliff and drowned the young odalisque. Or according to others, she ordered Gülbayez's strangulation in the Kandili Palace. Some writers stress the fact that Gülnu was a ruthless person, claiming that she attempted to have her husband's brothers, Süleyman II and Ahmed II, strangled after she gave birth to her firstborn Mustafa. But Mehmed's mother Turhan Sultan had hindered these attempted murders. She accompanied Mehmed, Turhan Sultan, Prince Mustafa and Mehmed's sisters, together with a large entourage, in processions marking the Polish War in 1672 and 1673. In 1683, she joined a similar large entourage for a procession marking the siege of Vienna. Gülnuş also established networks of support. Within the imperial court, she allied with Yusuf Aga, the chief eunuch of the imperial harem at that time. Her addition was the administrator of the pious foundation that she founded in 1680 and provided income for a hospital and public kitchens in Mecca. Moreover, Gülnuş's chamberlain, Meta Osman Aga, was an apprentice and protege of Yusuf Aga. Gülnuş also enjoyed close relations with Feyzullah Efendi, who served as tutor to her son Mustafa. These relations still remained even after the disastrous collapse of the siege of Vienna in 1683, as a result of which his influence at the court fell sharply. Thus, in an incident dating to 1686, when he let his horse graze in the royal garden, it was decided that he had to be punished. Gülnuş intervened to save him, and he was assigned a new post. In 1672, Amkazade Hussein, nephew of Koprok Mehmed Pasha, met Mehmed and Gülnuş on the way to the Polish War. He later joined her household, serving therein for an extended period, and became her chief billeting officer in 1682. She also played a role in determining the careers of various statesmen, including the Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa Pasha. After the siege of Vienna in 1683, he was stripped of his office and executed, after a considerable lobbying effort of Gülnuş and the court eunuchs. She also had influence during the vizierate of Fazıl Ahmed Pasha, which rose after Kara Mustafa Pasha's execution. Mustafash became valid in 1695, when her older son Mustafa II became the Sultan. She held the position during the reign of 2 sons. When the second was dethroned in 1703, the populace blamed Gülnu for his preference for Aden over Constantinople as a place of residence, and for the general confusion of life in the capital. She of course had more freedom of movement and contacts than the consorts. Quite often she accompanied her son, She visited her daughters in their palaces, took part in the wedding of her daughter Fatma Ematullah Sultan at the side of her son, visited her daughter Hatice Sultan in company of the Sultan. After she had given birth to a daughter, she looked at parades, visited Abe, received the Grand Vizier and the Zay-Islam, and accepted invitations by the Grand Vizier and the Boston Spak. With her son, she had private domains and a Kethuda steward who administered them for her. Mustafa kept close contacts with his mother. He honored her demonstratively. Whenever there was an occasion, he sent her information, asked for her well-being, and received many horses as gifts from her. He even prohibited that anybody should stay in a house in Kuala, between Constantinople and Eden, in which his mother had spent a night. She did have some political importance. In 1703, she was asked to confirm and approve of the succession of her other son, Ahmed III, to the throne, which she also did. Ahmed III thought it prudent to keep her out of sight until the feeling against her had died down, and so, on her return from Eden, she went to the old palace for a time. She's also attributed to having advised her son to the war with Russia in 1711. In 1709, King Charles XII of Sweden settled in Bender, within the Ottoman Empire during his war with Russia. He wished the Sultan to declare war against Russia and form an alliance with Sweden. The Sultan was rumored to listen to the advice of his mother, who had a large influence over him. Charles sent Stanislaw Poniatowski and Thomas Funk as his messengers. They bribed a convert named Goin, formerly a Frenchman, who worked as a doctor in the palace. Goin arranged a meeting with the personal slave of the valet, a Jewish woman, who they gave a personal letter to the valet. They were also introduced to the Hungarian eunuch Harwolf, who became their propaganda person in the harem. The valet became intrigued by Charles, took an interest in his cause, and even corresponded with him in Bender. On the 9th of February 1711, Turkey declared war against Russia, as the Sultan had been advised by his mother, who convinced him that Charles was a man worth taking a risk for. She also sponsored the transformation of a church in Galata into a mosque, and building of 5 fountains with which clean water was finally made available to the area. She also made endowments in Eden, Chios, Mecca, Medina, Kastamonu, and Menemen. After the reconquest of the island of Chios in 1695, a church was converted into a mosque in her name. She also constructed a fountain next to the mosque in Chios. Gülnuş Sultan died on the 6th of November 1715 in Istanbul, during the reign of her son Ahmed III, just before the start of the era of prosperity and peace, called the Tulablale era by the Turkish historians. She is buried at a tomb that is open to sky, that is near the mosque she bequeathed to be built at Skdar on the Anatolian side of Istanbul, called the New Valid Mosque.